Hey guys, Button25 here watching the test of NASA's LDSD. Oh, there's one.
Hello everyone, and for the LDSD team, aloha. NASA is back in Hawaii for the second flight of low-density supersonic decelerator project. I'm Gay Yee Hill with mechanical engineer Dan Koda. We're speaking to you from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. JPL built the test vehicle, and the two of us are here watching along with you to help explain things as we go along. Right now, it's about 7 a.m. Hawaii time, 10 a.m. Pacific, and 1 p.m. Eastern time. And as you can see, final preparations are underway.
5 p.m.
We have cameras on the pad. We also have cameras in the test vehicle operations center. And we also have one in balloon operations. And one more at Makeha Ridge, right there. And that will be our final shot as the balloon makes its final ascent up to about 120,000 feet.
I can verify external bolts are off.
And Dan, why don't you give us just the order of business today? What's going to be happening step by step in this test?
Sure. Hey, Gay, it's good to be here. So, like you said, today we're doing a test here on Earth to try out some new technologies that we're developing to help land bigger and heavier spacecraft on Mars in the future. And in order to do that, we have a team that's on the ground in Kauai, and they've actually been out there for about the past 10 hours getting ready for the test. Right now we're watching them fill a gigantic balloon with helium. You can see it over on the left of the screen. And that balloon is going to launch about half an hour from now. And we have a graphic that we can bring up that shows what's going to happen in the test after the balloon launches. It's going to launch and it's going to lift our test capsule up to an altitude of about 120,000 feet in the air. That's going to take a while. It's going to take about 2.5 hours to get up there. After we get to 120,000 feet, the team on the ground is going to evaluate the health of our test capsule, make sure that it's ready to go for the test, and once they've done that, they'll hit the button to issue the command to drop the test capsule off the balloon. From there, it's going to start spinning for stability like a top, and then a big rocket is going to fire, and the capsule is going to blast off and accelerate up 4 times the speed of sound, almost 3,000 miles per hour. That rocket also takes it on an upward arc, so it's going to increase its altitude up to 180,000 feet. That's 5 times as high as a 747 flies. Once we're there, then it's time to test the technologies that we're developing here. So the first one is called a SIAD. It's basically a big inflatable donut that goes around our test capsule. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the second one, after we slow down to about Mach 2.5, is a really big 100-foot diameter balloon, or I'm sorry, a parachute. So we inflate both the SIAD and the parachute. Once we use them, we have sensors that are measuring pressures, temperatures, forces. We have cameras everywhere on the vehicle to really understand what's happening with those technologies. And then we coast down on the parachute, splash down in the ocean about 40 minutes later, and then we have recovery boats standing by to go fish everything out of the water so that we can study it further after the test is over.
So let's take a look at where we stand right now. The balloon inflation started at about 6:08 local time. That's 9:08 Pacific and about a little afternoon East Coast time. And the drop, or the launch is expected to occur the window between 7:30 and 8 a.m. local time, Hawaii time. And the drop is expected to be about 3.5 hours after launch, so everything should happen before noon local time. Now, to get this vehicle and technology to altitude, the LDSD team had to turn to NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Wallops had the experience in launching scientific balloons and has done a lot of work with Pacific Missile Range Facility. So it just seemed to make sense to work with Wallops with the experience and expertise. And with us right now is Gabriel Garda. He is the Missions Operations Manager at NASA's Balloon Program Office from Wallops. Gabe, are you there?
Can we clear NSO? Negative. NSO says he'll give his final clearance once he has the essential personnel out of the area. Okay, copy that. So we'll wait.
All right, we're going to wait to go ahead and take care of that interview with Gabe. Meantime, the crew and the project is doing a poll.
That'll come after balloon inflation is complete.
While we're waiting, Dan, give us an understanding of why we're even here. Why are we at the PMRF in Kauai, Hawaii? Why choose this spot?
Sure. So this test takes up a lot of space. We've got this giant balloon that we have to launch. Once it launches, it's going to drift around in the wind as it ascends to altitude. Then our capsule drops off, and the rockets are going to fire, and the capsule will travel hundreds of miles before it finally splashes down in the ocean. So to do this test safely, we need a really big, wide-open space where there are no airplanes, no boats, no cities, no people below to be in harm's way for the test. And there just aren't that many places in the whole world where there's a big enough space where we can sort of close it off for the duration of the test. PMRF is one of those few places, and so that's why we're doing it here today.
We have this flyover Google map that can give people an idea of where this is located and the space you're talking about.
Yeah, so PMRF is on the island of Kauai, so we've just zoomed in there. And it's on the west coast of Kauai. And as we zoom in more, you'll see a couple of runways and a cluster of buildings. So that's the Pacific Missile Range facility. And in a moment, we'll zoom in even more to one of the buildings, the Range Operations Control Center, or the ROC. And that's where some of our mission managers are housed, and they're there monitoring the test as it happens. Next, we'll hop over to the launch pad. So this is adjacent to one of the runways, and it's basically the space where, in some of the camera views that we've already seen, the balloon is being set up, our test capsule is being set up. This is where the launch actually takes place. Then we'll move on to mission control. So we've had some camera views of our team inside the mission control building. This is where our team is actually communicating with the vehicle, sending commands to it, receiving information from it. And those commands which get sent to the vehicle are sent via antennas, which are up on the Makaha Ridge. So we're going to zoom over to that next. And we also have some camera views of the balloon that are from the Makaha Ridge as well. So that's the Pacific Missile Range facility on the west coast of Kauai. That's where the launch is taking place. By the time we get to the point of actually doing the test, the balloon will have drifted out west over the Pacific Ocean.
So you see that this operation is very spread out. It takes a tremendous amount of coordination.
Absolutely, yeah. There are teams on the ground there from all sorts of NASA centers and local teams from PMRF as well. It's a really big operation involving lots of different teams of people coordinating together to make this test happen.
So now let's talk about what exactly are we testing this time? What are the two technologies we're focusing on?
Sure. So the first one is called a SIAD. That stands for Supersonic Inflatable Aerodynamic Decelerator, kind of a mouthful. And we have a graphic that shows the SIAD and that can kind of explain how it works. The SIAD is basically a big inflatable donut that goes around our test capsule. On the left, you can see a view of the SIAD before it's inflated. And it's made of fabric. It's actually made of Kevlar, which is what bulletproof vests are made out of, so it's very strong. And because it's fabric, it can sort of fold and pack up like clothes. And so in the left view, you can see that it's actually folded up around the test capsule. It's the yellowish part, the yellowish ring that has numbers on it. Then when it's time to use it, which happens at about 4 times the speed of sound, the right view shows it inflated. So it increases the size of our test capsule and increases its drag, and so it helps it slow down much more efficiently than it would otherwise.
Now, the Syad R was flown last year, and it proved itself out. It is now flight ready.
That's correct. So the Syad was successful in the test last year. We were really happy with its performance, and so the Syad that we're flying this year has the same design as the Syad last year.
And then looking at the second technology, that would be the parachute. This is how we create drag as we're coming into Mars. Talk about those parachutes.
Sure. So every time we've ever landed on Mars, we've used a parachute. The difference with this one is that it's bigger. And we have another graphic which shows a comparison of different parachutes we've used. So at the top is the Phoenix mission, then Viking. MSL is the Curiosity rover. So you can see the size of those parachutes. LDSD is the parachute that we're using here today. It's got twice the area of the parachute that was used to land Curiosity. And that's because we're trying to land bigger and heavier things on Mars in the future, and we need bigger parachutes in order to slow down and do that. So we've never successfully tested such a big parachute supersonically before, so this really will be a first for us.
And you're watching NASA TV and Ustream of the launch of LDSD. This is the second test that NASA is conducting, and it's coming to you live from Kauai, Hawaii. And as we wait for this test to begin, Dan, explain to us why we even need this technology.
Sure. So, as you know, the Curiosity rover landed about 3 years ago on Mars, and that landing was perfect. It was a spectacular success. Curiosity weighs about 1 ton, which is already a pretty good size, but we know that in the future we want to land even bigger and heavier things on Mars, bigger robots, and eventually human habitats with astronauts in them, and those are going to be really heavy. One of the real challenges of landing on Mars is that its atmosphere is very thin. It's only about 1% of the density of Earth's atmosphere, and that makes it very, very hard to slow down. Here we've got an animation showing Curiosity's landing on Mars. So the entry capsule enters the atmosphere at 13,000 miles per hour. Right about now, in a future mission, is where we would use the Syad. We would inflate that inflatable donut, and it would slow down even faster. Once it slows down enough to about Mach 2.5, we deploy the parachute. We want to replace this one with a parachute that's twice the size to help us slow down. Then we deploy the heat shield, and then the rocket-powered descent stage drops out off the parachute, fires its rockets to slow down. It's got the rover on its belly, and it's carrying it down towards the surface of Mars. It gets lower and lower, and then eventually lowers the rover down. The rover gets once it's down, the rover chops those cables, and the descent stage flies away, leaving the rover safe on the surface of Mars. This is how Curiosity landed 3 years ago. It looks a little crazy, but it works perfectly. We're not looking to actually change some of the elements of the landing. A lot of them would stay the same in a future mission. What we're looking at doing is adding in these new technologies, the Syad and the bigger parachute, to enable us to land heavier things in the future.
And we'll get to the specific technologies in a little bit, but meantime, let's check in again at what's happening at the PMRF in Kauai, Hawaii. We understand in a few moments they will be releasing the umbilical.
Go ahead, TC. Yeah, still awaiting your green for balloon launch. Range is green. It's check step 80. MD, this is TC on Project Net.
TC is MD, go ahead.
Request permission to execute balloon launch.
TC, this is MD. You may launch when ready.
Thank you, sir. Check step 81. Green, request a clear range to execute the balloon launch. Right, you have a clear range, sir. Thank you. BPO, this is TC on the Project Net.
You can go, TC.
Yes, sir, you're authorized to execute the balloon launch.
Thank you, sir. Copy. All right, team, as a reminder, as we learned last time, balloon launch happens, doesn't fly up like a rocket, so we don't need to run all outside the very first minute. So let's look at telemetry a little bit and maybe a minute or two and make a couple of turns. Slowly walk outside. See the balloon. Slowly, right.
All stations on the project net. BPO has now been authorized to commence balloon launch. Rearward hold protocol is now in effect.
And you are watching live on NASA TV and Ustream the test of LDSD, and we have just heard from the project that they are clear on the range and authorized to execute the balloon launch. We anticipated this would happen at about at the half hour, but it could happen at any time, so we are standing by.
TC, BPO.
Go ahead, BPO.
Yeah, TC, just an update in the progression. We haven't put the collar on yet. Inflation's taking a little bit longer. CM estimates another 15 to 20 minutes from now. How copy?
I copy another 15 to 20 minutes for balloon inflation.
No, 15 to 20 minutes before launch. In addition, correction.
BPO, do you want to adjust the balloon launch time?
Stand by. That's 15 to 20 minutes before he completes inflation, and then he'll need the additional time on that. Let me get a estimated launch time from him. Okay, TC, that's another 15 to 20 minutes for launch. Best estimate I can give right now.
The BPO, I copy another 15 to 20 minutes for launch.
Correct.
NSO, this is FS.
And as we've just heard, there is another 15 to 20 minutes before launch. We've been told that the range is clear, but the balloon still needs to complete its inflation, and that should take at least another 15 to 20 minutes from now. While we're waiting, Dan, go ahead and explain to us why we have to do this test with this huge balloon at high altitudes. Why do we have to go through this exercise?
Well, one of the really tricky things about this test is that we're trying to simulate Mars's atmosphere here on Earth. And like I mentioned before, Mars' atmosphere is very thin, only about 1% of the density of Earth's atmosphere. And so we have to go really high up in Earth's atmosphere in order to achieve the same density. So that's why the balloon has to go so high up in the air, and then the rocket takes us even higher to 180,000 feet. Also, another difficult thing is that in a Mars entry, our spacecraft is traveling very fast. It enters the atmosphere at 13,000 miles an hour and starts slowing down from there. And so that means to simulate it, we have to go very fast as well. So that's what that big rocket is for, in order to accelerate us up to Mach 4 in order to do that test.
We've got some time. Let's go ahead and look at a play-by-play of what took place last year, so people are familiar of what's going to happen today. It's going to be pretty much the same scenario.
Similar, yeah. So we have a video of last year's test, which went very well. We were overall really happy with it. and we can roll that and show you what happens. So this is last June, and there's the balloon lifting off. This rope pays out under the balloon, and there's the test capsule lifting off from the launch tower and lifting up into the air. The balloon goes higher and higher, and as it does, it actually expands. That's because the pressure outside is lower and lower as it gets higher in the air. Once we get up to altitude, then the test capsule drops off the balloon and starts spinning for stability, and then our big main rocket fires. Test capsule lifting off from the launch tower and lifting up into the air. That rocket burns for about 1 minute. Once it's done, then we stop spinning, and now we're at the right altitude and the right speed to start the test of the SIAD. So the lens covers come off, and then we inflate the SIAD. There it goes. And at this point, we're measuring pressures, temperatures. We have all sorts of video. This is a cool sort of 360-degree view of the SIAD inflating. And that SIAD worked perfectly last year. We were really happy with it. And so, like I said, we're flying the same design SIAD. That slows us down from Mach 4 to Mach 2.5, and then it's time to test the parachute. First, we deploy what's called a balloot, which is a smaller device that's used just to drag out the parachute. So there's the balloot, and then here comes the parachute. And you can see right away that something is wrong with the parachute. And we have a slow motion view that shows that the parachute actually developed rips in it even before it was fully open. It was in the process of opening, and you can see tears starting to form in it. And once the tears start, there's really no stopping them. The parachute at that point was just going to shred. So we've really been spending a lot of time over the past year looking at what happened in this test to understand better what happened with the parachute. And now we're coming back in this test with a brand new parachute design to test again.
So we are about perhaps 9 minutes out if it launches at 7:30 local time, which was the anticipated start time of this window. It could be 5 minutes after that as well, and we are standing by. You're watching live on NASA TV and Ustream of the test of LDSD.
OSS, this is CSBF Ordnance OSS. Wanting to confirm we have permission to begin the HAZ-UP on the caller. This is Wallace OSS, that is correct. You have permission to proceed. Thank you very much.
We've heard word that they have now completed the inflation, and we are standing by for launch now. It could occur anywhere between 30 minutes past the hour or 35 minutes past the hour. That's the targeted launch time. Meantime, Dan, explain to us what the test goals are. What are the goals of this test?
Sure. So like we saw from the test last year, everything actually went very well in the test until we got up to the parachute, and then the parachute didn't work. So this year we're really focused on that parachute, and for us to have a fully successful day, we really need that parachute to work. Now, we're not sure that it's going to work. That's why we're doing the test in the first place. We've done everything we can to try to make that happen, but it's not 100%. And so if the parachute doesn't work, then at the very least what we need to get is we need to get a good set of data on what happened. So that means we need to recover all of the video, all of the force data, all the pressure data in order to reconstruct exactly what happened with the parachute in the event that it doesn't work like we hope it does today.
Now, the crew has to figure out all the avenues they can take to prepare for this test, the test at altitude. So you do as much as you can here at sea level And you did a number of tests at China Lake to prepare for this moment.
That's right. So we have tested both the SIAD and the parachute down at sea level in much simpler tests before we get to the point of being ready to do this supersonic high altitude test, which is much more complicated. We have a video I think we can roll of our test of the SIAD. This is on what's called a rocket sled. It's basically a set of railroad tracks out in the middle of the desert, and we can fire rockets and shoot things down that track at high speed. This is a slow motion video of that test. So you see the rockets firing, accelerating the sled. We've got a mock-up of the test capsule at the end with the SIAD, and it's going to inflate in a moment. There it goes. So it inflates, and that puts the same amount of drag force on the SIAD as it's going to see in the supersonic test today. So it's a strength test. It tells us that the SIAD is strong enough to withstand those loads that it sees in the supersonic test.
All right. We are standing by. We are at the U.S. Navy's Pacific Missile Range facility for the second test of LDSD. And the test is scheduled to take off anywhere between 30 minutes past the hour or 35 minutes, and we are standing by. And we are watching and standing by. We're about 3 minutes out, as early as 3 minutes out of the launch of LDSD. Dan, explain to the viewers what we're seeing and how this will all play out.
So on the left of the view that we have right now is the balloon. It's just about done being filled with helium, and so you can see it there ready to go. There's a big long cable attached to that balloon, 1,000 feet or so of cable, and that attaches it to our test capsule, which is hanging off the tower that you see on the right side of the screen. That's the launch tower, and that's just keeping the test capsule safe up until the time that the balloon can take that load and carry it away. So that's a specially designed tower in order to do that. We also have, at this point, an umbilical, which is attached. I don't think we can see it in this view. It's basically an electrical connection which is attached to the test capsule, allowing it to be powered from the ground. And that's going to be pulled in a few minutes just prior to the launch. Yeah, and there in this view we have a close-up of the launch tower. You can see the umbilical hanging down from the test capsule.
Apparently launch is imminent. Those are the words I heard.
And we are standing by. We understand from the team that we are close to launch time.
Well, it's OSS. This is CSPF Ordnance OSS on Project Net. How do you copy? This is Lost OSS, go. Yeah, the ASOP has been completed on the collar. OSS copies.
Light thermal. Go thermal. I think my display just stopped. BPL display or
TC BPO, did you copy that? Collar installation's complete.
Yes, sir. Still shows frames. Here, your frame counter has stopped.
Do you have an estimate on
Systems, you just reset it.
full release?
Yes, plate. I'm going to go
This
off
is
net for a second to go check it out.
10 minutes,
maybe shorter.
Fine.
OCG, copy that?
Negative. I didn't hear him on his full release time.
I'm going to guess probably 5 to 10 minutes. They're getting the area cleared. Copy.
We just heard from the team on the VOCA that they are going to stand by an additional 5 to 10 minutes, so we will be waiting and standing by as well.
Flight, this is TC on ProjectNet.
Go TC.
Yes, sir, your status?
We're standing by, waiting for people. Verify telemetry.
Okay, copy that. Thank you. And flight systems back on that.
Copy system. For that.
To help people understand what will take place in the next few moments, we have an animation of the flight path. This is based on data from last year. Dan, can you take us through that?
Sure. So we have actual data from what the balloon did last year. That's this blue line that you see. So it starts at the launch pad, then starts going up over PMRF, first moves a little bit to the east before the winds start to carry it to the west over the ocean once it gets to a high enough altitude. The end of the blue line, which we'll see in a second, is where it reached its altitude of 120,000 feet. There it is. And from there, the red line is where the capsule dropped off the balloon, the rockets fired, and we actually performed the test. And you see that it goes up higher, up to 180,000 feet. Where it sort of performs a hook at the end is where we open the parachute, and then the capsule comes coasting down. It takes about 40 minutes or so for it to coast all the way down and splash down into the ocean. And from there, we had boats on standby to go fish everything out of the water after the test was over.
Now we have a projection of this year's test, and if we could roll that video as well. This is what they project based on the data they got overnight, what they think the flight path will be this time.
That's right. So obviously this test is very weather dependent and very wind dependent. So we've been paying very careful attention to the winds and to our projected path of the balloon. And so we have a projection for what we think the balloon is going to do during the test today after it launches in a few minutes. So here is this time a light blue line extending from the launch pad and going upward. You see it's on a little bit of a different path up, but like last year's, it gets up to a high enough altitude, and then there's a prevailing westerly wind, which carries it west out over the ocean, where we get to the point of dropping the test capsule off. We don't have the red line in this video to show the test capsule's trajectory from there, but that's just the path that the balloon will take.
All right. Meantime, we will stand by. You are seeing a live view from the U.S. Navy's Pacific Missile Range facility in Kauai, Hawaii, and we are standing by for the second test of LDSD.
That's a boat. Why is there a boat there? The balloon could get destroyed and the capsule would fall on the boat. There's no one's really long to with the fire. Although if that happened, that would be very cool. I'm wondering if I should recreate this in Caspian and how I'm going to do that. I'm looking for something that can, like a balloon type thing.
So we're still standing by, waiting for the launch of LDSD, but before this takes place, maybe we should take a moment to give viewers an idea of what they will be seeing, just managing their expectation of how much they'll be seeing in this test. It will launch, the balloon will launch, and then it will ascend to 120,000 feet, and everyone knows that we won't be able to stay on it for that long.
That's right. So we will have cameras that are tracking the balloon initially after the launch and for a period of time. But then we're going to lose it for a while. We won't have good views of it. And the launch is going to take a while. It'll take about 2.5 hours. Oh, there goes the umbilical. We just watched it being released from the test capsule. So that means that we're one step closer to the launch happening.
PC, BPO.
Go ahead, BPO.
The SDC, umbies are pulled.
Copy that. Check step 85.
85 steps.
So that is a major step. It's an indicator that we are closer to launch, so we are going to stand by and be quiet for a little bit.
Hi, this is Apache on TVNet.
Go Apache.
Can you see umbies pulled?
Yeah, we see umbi pulls. We still have good data, Apache. Thank you.
Copy that.
So just a second ago, before the umbilical was released, we were talking about the views that we're going to see. So right after the launch, we'll have cameras that are tracking the balloon as it ascends. After a while, we'll lose it, and we won't have any views of it for a little while. The ascent takes about 2.5 hours to get up to altitude. There's some more time after that where the team is going to be assessing the health of the capsule before we begin the test. Shortly before we actually start the test, we have remote cameras that are stationed on the capsule that are going to give us low-resolution views in real time of what's happening in the test. So we'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on in the test. It'll be low-res, though. It's not going to be some of the high-resolution footage that we've seen already here in the broadcast. That's going to come later on after we recover the black box, which is on board the vehicle. So that has to be fished out of the water before we get that high-resolution footage.
So one more time, we will watch this balloon launch and stay with it for perhaps another 30, 45 minutes, and then it will go out of view of our cameras. We will go off the air. We'll stay up on Ustream with a map and a website for you, and then we will come back on the air with commentary about 30 minutes prior to the drop, and maybe 15 minutes after the time we come on the air, the cameras, the onboard cameras should be firing up, and we'll be able to get a view from the test vehicle itself. So again, we will be on the air here and streaming live and on NASA TV till about maybe 30 to 45 minutes past the launch, off again, and then back on 30 minutes prior to the drop. In case you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage on NASA TV and Ustream of NASA's Low-Density Supersonic Decelerator Project. It's taking place right now at the U.S. Navy's Pacific Missile Range facility in Kauai, Hawaii. We're standing by live right now, waiting for the launch to take place. It could happen any time, so we will keep an ear on the VOCA to make sure we don't miss the moment. Meantime, Dan, go ahead and tell me a little bit about the balloon. How big is it? What's it made of? What is this?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting balloon that we're using this test. It doesn't look that big now, but like we saw a little bit earlier in one of the videos, as it gets higher and higher in the atmosphere, it expands to a bigger and bigger size. And then at its maximum, it's as big as a football stadium, like the Rose Bowl here in Pasadena. So it's really an enormous balloon. What's also a little bit surprising is that the material is extremely thin. It's the same sort of material that is your plastic grocery bags are made out of. So it's a very, very thin kind of plastic material.
Stand by. This is BPO. Balloon spool release is imminent.
Sounds like they're almost there.
All right, team. Hopefully you heard that.
We're hearing from the team right now that release is imminent, so we are going to stand by and be quiet.
That's what some of my friends need to learn to do. When something exciting is about to happen, they need to learn that they should shut up.
Balloon is released from the spool.
I just managed to get a screen in that.
All stations, check step 86 and 87.
I would love the balloon was dipped or lifted back.
Back. Thank you. Yay.
Oh, come on. Murphy's.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby. There, perfect. Yeah. Not yet. I'm calling you.
Does not want to lift.
Collar is released.
Sorry, what? Could you give us a view of the...
Come on. Come on. Come on.
The LDSD is still there.
Moving. I see it.
It's not moved.
Almost vertical.
So that would be so...
Come on.
all this work.
Touch forward.
I'm doing nothing.
No, that's the collar. What did they say? So they did what the collar folks out. Yeah, the collar. Come on, baby. Now they're just waiting for us. There it goes. There it goes. It's going to be perfect. There it goes.
There's not moving.
Yeah.
Balloon is launched. Balloon is launched.
Okay, that took a long time. That took a fairly long time to go, but hey, it went out longer than it went.
Well, that was stressful.
All stations,
Come on,
balloon
just
launch
treat them
time
like-
17:45:33. I repeat, launch time 17:45:33.
All right, team, that looked pretty good. Mean launch. Please start looking at your telemetry, make sure your all systems are healthy. We'll come around and do a poll here in 10 minutes or so. Give it time to relax.
Yeah, there's not much to do. I'll stay here while they have a... well, they have a feed of what's going on the thing. The cameras. Once that's gone, I'll cut my video as well. Yeah,
And as we've just seen, the balloon was released at 43 minutes past the hour, and 2 minutes later, the vehicle took off. Dan,
2
explain
minutes
what
and
we're
the
seeing
balloon.
right now.
That's a balloon.
Sure. So we're watching the test capsule rise higher and higher in the air below the balloon. Looks like the launch went beautifully. The balloon launched, sort of paid out the cable below it until it got directly above that capsule, and then you saw the launch tower quickly move out of the way, allowing the capsule to cleanly move upward and start to ascend underneath the balloon. So at this point, the team on the ground is checking the health of the vehicle, making sure that all its systems are healthy and looking good, and just making sure that we're on track.
So right now, that vehicle is on its way to 120,000 feet. 120,000 feet.
We're
That's
complete through
very
step
high.
88 of the TC's checklist.
Yeah, Ethernet task disabled.
Just for comparison purposes, 120,000 feet is about 3 times as high as a 747 flies. So this is going to very quickly pass through the altitude that you would fly in a passenger plane and go much, much higher than that.
So we're standing by watching the ascent, and in about 15 minutes, maybe a little less, we expect to get a poll from the team and a health and safety poll of the vehicle, and we'll be back for that.
TC is MD off net.
Copy that, MD. Balloon is ascending through all stations, BPO. Balloon is ascending through 5,000 feet. Balloon systems are green.
And here's a replay of the liftoff contact. Körülbelül 2,5 óra, hogy oda felérjen. Addig mutatják, hogy hogy mondta, hogy kilevésten 30-45 perc.
OC, this is TC on ProjectNet. Go ahead, TC. Yeah, the traffic I copied on the other net, is that reference to the NASA pad that's clear for personnel to enter?
Roger, that's the red label area.
Okay, thank you. Flight BPO, this is TC on ProjectNet. This is BPO, go ahead.
Go TC.
Yeah, just letting you know that the launch pad is clear for personnel to enter.
Copy, TC.
BPO, copy.
The launch pad's clear.
Pad Chief, flight on TVNet. All stations check steps 89, 90, and 91.
You're watching live coverage of the second test of the LDSD project. You can see in your screens right now the test vehicle being hoisted aloft by the gigantic balloon. It is on its ascent right now to float altitude, and float altitude is 120,000 feet. It'll take more than 2 hours to get to that altitude. And just a short time ago, we heard from the team that it had already reached the 5,000 mark.
That's around 2 kilometers, a bit less.
All stations, balloon is ascending through 10,000 feet. Balloon systems are green.
So you can see the vehicle is still on its ascent, and we just heard from the team that it had passed the 10,000 foot mark. We have some data and a projection of what route this vehicle would be taking. Dan, can you take us through that?
Sure. So we'll look at this one more time. This is the projected path of the balloon as it's rising through the atmosphere today. This is based on meteorological data that's been taken over the last day or so. And you see this light blue line showing where we believe the balloon is going to travel, up on kind of this wavy line until it gets high enough. And then there's a westerly wind that carries it out over the ocean. And the end of that line is the altitude where the test would actually start, where the capsule would drop off of the balloon, the rockets would fire, and then we would get up to 180,000 feet and start testing the SIAD and the parachute.
Now, the team takes agonizing measures to ensure that take every safety precaution about this. And one of the reasons why we didn't launch earlier was the fact that they were keeping track of the projections, and they wanted to be sure this vehicle would be taking a safe path.
That's right. We've had about a week of bad weather, which has prevented us from being able to do the test.
In Hawaii.
And so we're really happy to be able to do the test here today. And bad weather for this test can take different forms. First off, the wind at the actual launch pad has to be very, very calm in order to safely launch that balloon. Secondly, the winds up at higher altitudes have to be very, very calm so that the balloon is blown on the correct course by those winds, like we saw a minute ago in that predicted trajectory. The third thing is that the waves in the ocean actually have to be calm as well. That's because we have those recovery boats that are standing by to go fish everything out of the ocean after the test is over. And if the waves are too high, they can't do that. So all three of those things need to be very, very calm and correct in order for us to do the test. And for the past week or so, up until today, one or more of those things was always a little bit out of spec. So we're very, very happy that all three of them today are good for us to do this launch.
Let's remind folks about what this test is about. This is kind of a behind-the-scenes look. So often the public sees the final project, the landing on Mars. These are the steps. These are the steps to build the next landing on Mars.
Sure, let's just wait for a second and listen to what's going on in the VOCA.
Copy that. I'll pass by to TC. Are you guys heading back to 560 here? point will you guys be coming to 560 once you're done at the pad?
Where's the moon?
Affirmative.
All right, copy that.
So, like you mentioned, Gay, a minute ago, this really is a cool opportunity for us to see what happens behind the scenes in these tests.
Up a little bit, and then we'll be making their way over to 560.
Okay, copy that. Thank you for the status update.
Of course.
This is a test that we're doing here in Earth's atmosphere to test out technologies that later on we hope to use when we're landing on Mars. But we have to test them here on Earth first to see if they work before we send them all the way to Mars. So that's what the test last year was about. That's what this test this year is about. And these are the sorts of things that we have to do before we feel confident in these technologies.
Okay, we just heard they just got to 15,000 feet and all systems are green.
We'll go around once we reach the altitude. Maybe we'll start making our way around the team now. Right. So avionics, how are things looking?
One EPSU altitude switch is closed. We're waiting for the ordnance.
All right, copy. Let's wait for all those, and then we'll conclude. I'll come back to you. Systems, how are things looking on your side?
I see everything nominal here.
Copy nominal. Trajectory. I'm sorry, I stopped on your trajectory.
Trajectory's green.
Green. Thermal.
That's thermal. Everything looks nominal. Can you come back to me in about 5 minutes? Still trending some other stuff.
Will do.
Flight avionics, all three altitude switches are closed.
Copy that. Good news. Power, how are you?
Power concurs. Interesting fact there. Altitude just switch there. Closed actually about 10 seconds after the other monitor.
Copy. All right. Little history there between them. GNC?
GNC is nominal.
Copy nominal and obsolete.
All is good.
All right. Thermal, I'll give you a few more minutes and I'll come back.
Thanks, flight.
And TC is empty back on net.
Thank you, MD.
So the team is doing its health and safety poll on the vehicle, and we've heard a partial poll so far, right?
That's right. So Martin Greco, the flight director, who's sort of right in the middle in some of the views that we've seen so far, there he is doing a poll of all the systems to make sure that everything is healthy on the vehicle. They've already gone through a number of them, and sounds like everything is good to go. I think our thermal team needed a couple more minutes in order to look at their sensors and look at their data, and so they're going to poll them in a couple of minutes.
So we're standing by for this health and safety poll to be completed, and once that's done, we'll have an opportunity to speak to two members of the team. Steve Sell, he's the LDSD flight systems engineer, and Grace Tan Wong, she's the flight operations manager, and they are sitting in the back row of the mission control area of the test vehicle. So we'll be speaking to them in a short time.
This is TC on Project Net.
Go TC.
Yeah, just looking for a status update 15 minutes after launch.
Yeah, sorry, we're awaiting thermal here. Giving them a few more minutes. I'll come right back to you.
Yeah, copy that. Thank you.
just let us know when you're ready to report out. We'll stand by and wait on you.
Yeah, sure thing. Flight, that pre-launch data dropout kind of set me back. I'm catching up. Hang on.
No worries.
Nothing much to see. Since it's still going like it has been for the past however long.
Balloon is ascending through 20,000 feet. Balloon systems are green.
TC, this flight on Project Net.
We've just heard that the test vehicle and balloon have reached the 20,000-foot mark, 100,000 more to go.
Other than that, wow, look pretty green.
Okay, copy that.
Oh,
So,
100,000.
other than the thermal, everything's reporting green. The flight up to this point, nominal for you. Launch was nominal. Humvee's full was nominal, correct?
That's correct, TC.
Okay, all stations.
Flight,
TC
nominal.
on Project Net.
All systems green.
Balloon launch.
Things that we want to hear.
Nominal. Up to this point, everything has been nominal.
I have that report for you now.
We are currently at launch plus 18 minutes and 40 seconds. We are approximately 40 minutes from our first Met rocket launch. We will set our
maybe come
TV
back to
drop
when
time
we've gone through that
when we reach
fullest part and see if we sat there for the
80,000
expected
feet.
amount of time.
Copy that flight.
Which will be an indeterminate amount of time from now. So as we progress and we reach altitude, we'll set that drop time.
So this has been a textbook launch, it seems, and a beautiful one as well. You can see the moon in view of some of our shots here.
Process and actually set our TV drop time.
Yeah, you've heard the word nominal a lot in a lot of the status checks. To us, that means good. That means as we expect it to be. So when we hear that things are nominal, we're very happy about that.
Thank you, Flight.
So once the balloon goes out of view, we'll rely on this display. It's the global mapper. Dan, can you explain to us what we're seeing here?
Sure. So this is an overhead view showing the trajectory of the balloon, and so the balloon is actually sort of a tan kind of O shape that's a little bit south and west of the launch site at the PMRF. You see sort of more on the right side of the screen. And so there's a black and white line which shows the trajectory so far, and then we see the predicted trajectory from here on out of the balloon as it goes forward. So we'll have a view of this throughout the test, seeing where the balloon is as it makes its progress out over the ocean towards the site where the capsule will drop off and the rockets will fire.
We understand from the team that they believe the float will take 3 hours from launch time, and launch took place at 7:45 Hawaii time, 10:45 Pacific, 1:45 Eastern. So 3 hours out from that, and that's when we hoped to see the drop portion of the test. And we are still standing by for the health and safety poll on the vehicle. So far, we've been hearing nominal and green, all good words, but we are waiting for the completion of that poll.
is ascending through 25,000 feet. Balloon systems are green.
We've just heard that the vehicle has reached the 25,000 mark and all systems are green. And this is a good time when the team has a little bit of downtime, so we're going to take a moment to speak to Grace Tan Wong. She's the Flight Operations Manager, and also Steve Sell. He's the LDSD Flight Systems Engineer. And we'd like to hear how that health and safety poll went. How did it go, Steve?
Well, the vehicle is doing great. We lifted off about 20 minutes ago. All systems are functioning nominal. The launch went beautifully. All the checkouts this morning went beautifully, and we're expecting a great flight.
While we have that microphone in your hand, can you explain to us a little bit about the global mapper? We're going to lose the view of the balloon pretty quickly, and that's how you'll be monitoring the ascent. Can you explain to viewers what they'll be seeing and how they might be able to understand what they're seeing?
Sure. The global mapper is a real-time display of where the balloon is and the predicted trajectory of the balloon. So you'll see on the map there's a dashed line that shows the path that we expect the balloon to take. There's symbols on there that indicate where the balloon is, and also symbols on there that indicate where we would expect the test vehicle to drop if we were to drop at each given location. So we can always keep track and know exactly where we would expect things to go, no matter where we are in flight. And we track that as it's going against both where it is now and the predictions from the previous day. So it's similar to a GPS display in your car. You're seeing a map of Hawaii and the Pacific Ocean to the west of Hawaii, and you're just watching the dot on the map, which shows you where you are.
Hey, Steve, so what would you say is the mood in the room right now? Are people feeling excited, nervous, confident? How are things going out there?
I think people are right now in a relaxed state. We were very excited and, of course, anxious and nervous when we're letting go of the balloon. That takes a lot of coordination between a lot of people, and the wind has to cooperate. And so we were very happy to get that off. And now everybody gets a little bit of a breather while we wait for the balloon to get to altitude.
Steve, I was wondering if you could hand the mic over to Grace and we can talk to her for a few minutes.
Hi, Gay.
Hi. So, Grace, explain to viewers how complex this is. This is a test, but it feels more like a flight mission, a mission to Mars.
Right. Well, like Steve mentioned, it's a coordination across multiple teams, and we've all been working together to practice and make sure we understand each other's parts and pieces, and that we all are coordinated and can work together. So yeah, we've showed up like a few weeks ago and run through this, both how we expected and any of our, off nominal cases or things that we didn't plan might happen, and be prepared for that. And so that we can all pull it off in a flawless way and let the experiment execute as we planned.
And this is a coordinated effort between a number of NASA centers, is it not?
Oh, yes. So we have Wallops Flight Facility, as well as JPL being program management, but as well as coordinated with Langley and Marshall and a whole bunch of other NASA centers, as well as the Navy. So this is a Navy facility that we're using, and so they're accommodating a balloon launch that isn't typical for them, as well as working with NASA.
All right. Well, glad to see you there, Grace. I know you just got off a plane to make it there. I'm surprised you made it. You must be jet lagged.
Yeah, well, very excited, and I'm so happy to be here, and we're excited about a great day.
All right. Well, we're so glad you could participate.
Thank you.
And as you can see, the balloon is still on its ascent. It's headed towards its float altitude, which is 120,000 feet. Ordinarily, it takes over 2 hours to reach that mark, and we will be standing by when it goes out of view, because our cameras can't stay on it for that full time. We will be going over to the global mapper, and as Dan and also Steve explained, that will give it as well. So recapping what happened earlier this morning, afternoon if you're back east, we launched LDSD. This is the second test of LDSD. It took place at about 10:45 Pacific, 7:45 Hawaii time. And the test vehicle is on its ascent right now to the 120,000 foot mark, which is the float altitude. And Dan, explain again why we're going to these extreme measures. We're trying to duplicate the conditions of Mars.
That's right. So we're testing out two new technologies that we're developing, a SIAD, big inflatable donut, and a really big parachute. And we want to use both of those in future missions to Mars to land very heavy things on Mars. In order to do that test correctly, we need to go really high up in Earth's atmosphere, where it's about the same density as Mars's atmosphere. So that's what this balloon is doing right now, is it's taking our capsule up to 120,000 feet. Then there's a rocket which will carry our capsule up to 180,000 feet, 5 times as high as the 747 flies. And that's the correct altitude for us to do this test in a simulated Mars condition.
We just heard from the team that the vehicle has reached the 35,000-foot mark. Meantime, we have Gabriel Garda. He's the Mission Operations Manager from NASA's Balloon Program Office. That's out of Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. He's standing by in the control room right now. Hi, Gabe. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Gabe?
All right. So it looked flawless to us, but why don't you tell us how the balloon went, the launch?
The launch was pretty much impeccable. I mean, we couldn't ask for much more. The winds were light, but they were right down the pipe, and so the spool release went off just perfectly, and the balloon erected, and tower release was excellent. So it just rose right up, and since then everything's been nominal, and we continue on our way up.
Is everything going as expected?
Oh yeah, we haven't had any issues. We don't expect any issues, and we expect to be up to float altitude in just under 3 hours from launch time.
Gabe, what happens to the balloon after the capsule drops off of it?
So after the capsule drops off, what essentially happens is once the capsule drops off, you have that just extreme decrease in the amount of suspended weight that you're carrying, that drop in mass, and so the balloon essentially self-terminates, and so the rest of the balloon is a single-use vehicle. It takes you up to your float altitude, and then once you terminate it, the balloon essentially just tears itself apart, but it generally stays in one piece, and then it comes down in the ocean, within a few minutes from termination.
And from that point, we have a boat that's standing by to go fish it out of the water. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Everything is recovered, the balloon and the test vehicle, after a successful test.
Now, there was a strong coordination effort. It's my understanding that the LDSD project went to Wallops because you have the most experience with large balloons and also working with the PMRF.
Yes, the balloon program. This is NASA's. We're a suborbital platform, part of NASA's suborbital program, along with sounding rockets and scientific balloons. And essentially, part of the reason they came to us is because we are a low-cost carrier, and we can achieve the initial test conditions that the LDSD project was looking for in terms of getting up to a stable stratospheric altitude, and then from there, igniting their rocket and sending it up to about 180,000 feet.
You use balloons like this for other missions, but how is this one different? Do you normally use a launch tower as you did today?
Actually, the launch tower is highly unique. It was designed especially for the LDSD project. Typically, the launch tower is what's considered a static launch technique. Our typical launch technique is actually a dynamic launch, in which we have a mobile launch vehicle that aligns itself with the winds, and the balloon erects the same way over the vehicle, but we're able to maneuver the vehicle to a position to actually release it from there. The reason for the static launch technique for this tower essentially is to mitigate personnel risk and safety risk, essentially, since we are carrying a rocket. This is the first of its kind in terms of carrying a live ordnance aboard the balloon of such a large magnitude. But it's worked out extremely well, and PMRF is a great place to do it from, because you have very stable launch conditions. At these times with the trade winds.
So was that the biggest challenge? You had to sort of reinvent the wheel, so to speak, because you've never had to deal with a vehicle quite like this before.
That's correct, and I think that was the original challenge that was put forth, that was put on our plates a number of years ago. Our guys stepped up to that challenge and really, you're exactly right, reimagined the wheel, and went forth and designed and worked with other commercial companies to build this tower, and then of course our guys initiated it and implemented it, and that's what we see today outside with our second test flight.
All right, Gabe, thank you so much for joining us. It still looks like everything's going flawlessly. All systems are green. Gabe Garda, Missions Operations Manager from NASA's Balloon Program Office out of Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you.
I think very soon we'll lose contact with the balloon. Lose visual contact.
Flight systems, I'm going to respin my station here if you're okay with that. Copy system. There.
I'm presuming they're very close running to balloonific visual contact.
So we're watching NASA's low-density supersonic decelerator on its ascent. It's headed towards the 120,000-foot mark. That is when it reaches its float altitude. And Dan, that'll take a couple of hours, right?
That's right. So it's been about 45 minutes or so since the balloon launched, and it's going to be another hour and a half or so before the balloon reaches that float altitude of 120,000 feet. And from there, the team on the ground is going to do checkouts of the vehicle to make sure that all its systems are healthy, that everything is still in good working order before they issue the command for it to drop off the balloon and fire the rockets and start the test. So we're looking at a few hours here before we get into the actual test event. The actual test, though, is very fast. After the vehicle drops off the balloon and the rockets fire, it only takes about 3 minutes for everything to happen. So it's sort of a long wait at this point in time to get everything in position, and then once it does, things move very fast.
We just heard from the team, and the balloon and vehicle has crossed the 45,000-foot mark. And we are going to wrap up commentary for the team, but we will keep the shot of the balloon and test vehicle as long as it's in frame and in view, and then we will move over to the global mapper. NASA TV may be wrapping up and going back to regular programming, but if you want to stay with this and the shot, we will continue this on Ustream. And for updates, be sure to go to www.nasa.gov/LDSD. www.nasa.gov/LDSD. And if you want to join in the conversation, just use 11, I believe it's 10 a.m. Hawaii time, local time, and 4 p.m. Eastern. Back at 1.
Time to reach the drop that previously stated.
There you guys, I'll just cut the video until they have feedback. So I'll see you guys then.
Wind systems are green.
Okay guys, don't quite know when the thing is going to be dropped, but I think that's happening soon. Yeah, so you got look at this flight path. And did stay quite close to what they predicted. But yeah.
For us to be ready, even if we need to start earlier, we should make sure we're ready on console around 10:30. If you need a little break, this is probably a good time to take it. Don't stray too far.
Okay guys, you can see the weather balloon.
RD, this is TC on Project Net.
It was approaching drop -1 hour.
Flight GNC.
You're watching live coverage of the second test of NASA's Low-Density Supersonic Decelerator, or LDSD. This test is taking place right now at the Pacific Missile Range facility in Kauai, Hawaii. I'm Gaye Hill with JPL mechanical engineer Dan Koda. The two of us are at JPL watching this test right along with you, providing commentary to try to help explain things along the way. And I have to eat my words. If Jess will go ahead and cut to that shot of the balloon, earlier on in our first commentary, I had said that there was no way that we would still have the balloon in view, but apparently we've been able to hold it pretty much throughout, and I wish we could cut to it pretty soon. But yes, if you've been watching with us, we have been able to see the balloon. And now here is a recap of what happened earlier. Dan, why don't you take us through it?
Sure. So this is the launch of the balloon a little bit earlier today. So it was a beautiful launch. You see that there's this cable underneath the balloon, about 1,000 feet of cable that attaches it to our test vehicle. And so the balloon launches, lifts that cable up, and there's the test vehicle hanging from the launch tower. As soon as the balloon is almost vertical over that launch tower, then it's time for the tower to release the test vehicle, and then the whole thing starts lifting up into the air and ascends up to altitude. So the balloon is getting closer and closer to vertical. Took a minute for it to get there, but once it did, the test vehicle launched beautifully from the tower. There it is. So you see that yellow arm swings out of the way, clear of the vehicle, and then the vehicle just lifts straight up on the balloon. That was a couple of hours ago, and since then, the balloon has been lifting up, and now it is at its final float altitude of about 120,000 feet. This is a live view. It's pretty amazing that we're watching a balloon 120,000 feet in the air on a live camera from the ground. So there's somebody with really steady hands there operating that camera, and we're really happy to have that shot.
And we have a report from the team that drop time should be about 21:35 UTC. That's about 11:35 a.m. Hawaii time, 2:35 Pacific Daylight Time, 5:35 Eastern Time. So we're about a half hour away from possible drop time.
Okay, this is live. You can now go back and do your explanation.
All right. So we wanted to explain that this is a live shot, and we are able to see this from a camera on the hangar at the PMRF. And our special thanks to someone named Frog, who is operating the camera right now and giving us that shot. Last year, we were not able to stay with the balloon throughout. We lost the shot and had to go to infrared cameras. This year, due to the flight path and the atmospheric conditions, you're looking at the balloon right now.
Flight thermal.
Go thermal.
And based on what I'm seeing on the Glenmac housing temperatures, you guys have the full disposal of the 85 minutes that we talked about.
Copy that. All right, team. Just a reminder, we'll be picking up the count here in 1 minute. So get ready to support. Drop power on.
So the operator of that camera is Carl Olander. He is at the hangar right now. His nickname is Frog. That's what the folks there know him as. And he is giving us this amazing shot of the balloon on its ascent. It's at float now. It's at 120,000 feet. It's amazing that we can see it.
So at this point in time, the team is checking out our test vehicle, checking all the systems to make sure that in a little bit, we're going to hear some polls of the different systems to make sure that everything is healthy.
My apologies, Carl. It's Carl Frolander, and maybe that's why they call him Frog. And Carl Frolander is the operator giving us this wonderful, wonderful shot of the balloon.
Go ahead, BPO.
Is the operator giving us this wonderful, wonderful shot of the balloon.
Go ahead, BPO.
While we have some time, we're about a half hour out from drop. Dan, why don't you kind of take folks through the flight test profile? What's going to happen at drop time? What are the different scenarios that we'll have to see to make all of this work?
Sure. So the main thing that we're trying to do in this test today is to simulate Mars's atmosphere in a test here on Earth. And so to do that, we have to go really high up in the air, and we have to travel very, very fast because when our spacecraft enter Mars's atmosphere, they're moving very quickly. So I think we have a graphic we can show which shows that profile. Right now, the balloon, there we go, the balloon has launched. It's up at its float altitude, around 120,000 feet. And shortly, in about half an hour, once the team has determined that the vehicle is in good health and ready to go, they're going to send the command to drop the vehicle off of the balloon. At that point in time, it's going to start spinning for stability, and a big rocket is going to fire, accelerating up to 4 times the speed of sound, almost 3,000 miles per hour. That's also going to increase its altitude up to 180,000 feet, 5 times as high as a 747 flies. Once we're there, we'll be at the correct altitude and speed to start testing the technologies that we're developing in this program. So first, we will inflate the SIAD, the sort of inflatable balloon that goes around the test vehicle, and that will help us decelerate from Mach 4 down to Mach 2.5. Once we're at Mach 2.5, we'll deploy the parachute, a 100-foot wide supersonic parachute, which will also help us to slow down. And our vehicle will then coast down on the parachute towards the ocean, which will take a while. Before we actually hit the ocean, we'll be powering down the entire vehicle to make sure that it's safe to splash down. So we'll lose our camera views at some point on the vehicle because of that.
Now you'll notice from the graphic, you saw the balloon when it started off. It looked sort of like a teardrop, and now you can see the balloon is fully inflated, very round. It got bigger as it went further and further up.
That's right. Yeah. So now it's sort of at its full shape, and that's because the atmospheric density is or pressure is so much lower up at that high altitude, 120,000 feet, than it is at sea level.
The team did a shakeout of this particular test 1 year ago in June, and basically They wanted to see if this test would work, all the different mechanisms to see if they would shake out and work. And they also took advantage.
Anya nem tölti be.
Expanding as it goes higher and higher up. And then there it is fully expanded. Good view of the balloon expanding as it goes higher up. And then there it is fully expanded. Once we were up at 120,000 feet, the vehicle dropped off the balloon and starts spinning for stability. There it is. And then the main rocket fires, accelerating it up to Mach 4 and increasing the altitude to 180,000 feet. The rocket fires for about a minute, burns out, and then the vehicle stops spinning. And at this point, we're in the right conditions, the Mars-like simulated conditions, in order to test our SIAD. So we deploy the SIAD. There it is. And there's a 360-degree view here of the SIAD deploying. The SIAD worked perfectly, helped us decelerate from Mach 4 to Mach 2.5. And at that point, at Mach 2.5, it was time to test the parachute. First, we deployed what's called a ballute. So we're going to see that ballute come out in a second. And that's actually used to pull the parachute out. So there's the ballute. That worked great. And then it pulls the parachute outward. And the parachute is the one thing that didn't work in the test last year. You can see that it shredded. And here's a slow-motion view of the parachute opening up. And it was actually getting ripped even before it fully opened. You see the rips forming it right away before it fully opens there. So we've been studying that very carefully over the past year. And we have a brand new design of parachute this year that we're going to be testing in this test here today.
And just to let people know what to expect, much of that footage was high-resolution footage that we got weeks after the test. For today, we will only be seeing the low-resolution footage from cameras and getting the high-resolution material further down the road.
That's right. Yeah, we have low-res cameras on the vehicle, which we're going to see in real time here in the test. All the really good stuff, the high-res, as well as all of the data, pressure, temperature, and force data, gets stored in a special black box on the vehicle, just like they have on airplanes. And that's designed to be recovered out of the ocean after the test. So it's very important that we get all of that so we can get that valuable information afterwards.
And when the drop test happens, Dan will tell you, it happens very, very quickly, and we will be able to see some of the onboard cameras, but we won't see all the cameras all the way down to drop. At a certain point, they will shut down the cameras to be prepared to hit the water, and so they want to be sure that those cameras are protected.
That's right. And speaking of the cameras, right now the team is in the process of powering up our test vehicle. In preparation for the test here in about 25 minutes. Eventually, one of the things they're going to power up are those cameras. And so here in maybe 5 or 10 minutes, we should start to get to see those camera views, which we're going to see on board the vehicle for the duration of the test.
And as we wait, maybe it's a good time to go over some of the goals of this year's test, which was different from last year's. Last year's test was the checkout. This year, what are we looking at?
This year, we're really focused on the parachute. Obviously, last year, that was the one thing that didn't work. And so for us to have a really good test here today, we want that parachute to work. Now, this is a test. We don't know what's going to happen. That's why we have to do the test here today. So it is possible that the parachute won't work. If that happens, then at a minimum, we really want to make sure that we get a good set of data on the parachute to really understand what happened. So that means video, force data, pressure data, to really help us understand what happened with the performance of the parachute. But to have a fully successful day, we really want the parachute to work.
So this year's test is about the parachute, and the parachute. And we do have a high-resolution image of the parachute from last year that the scientists and engineers are studying right now.
That's right. And just one other note before we get to that is
start vid recording.
We may be able to see that the parachute looks like it works in our sort of live low-resolution feed, but we won't really know for sure if the parachute performed really well until a couple days after the test. And that's because, like I said, all of the really high-resolution data is stored in that black box, which has to be fished out of the ocean. So the team needs a few days to get that data, take a look at it, before they can say with confidence that the parachute has worked correctly. We'll be able to get a pretty good indication in real time on the test here. Now here we go. Here's some of the camera views have come up. It's sort of a quad view, and we see the top 2 views are active. The other 2 at the moment are not.
Over here as well.
Copy, good command.
So these are the onboard cameras, and they are live right now, and this will enable the team to see when things actually deploy.
You see the videos down here in the rock.
Firm, that's good news. All right, team, so we're now on test vehicle flight configuration block 2, so we're on step 14.6. And avionics, just to confirm, you said we are recording with the DVR, the TOC?
The TOC DVR is recording. All the GoPros are booted up, are recording in proper mode. All core DVRs booted up in the expected time.
All right, copy that. Right. We're now continuing on to block number 3, D-minus 20.
DCOC.
So we're on step 14.70.
Right, I have final readings on 1831 and
power can confirm
2269.5.
DCU connectors show mated.
So the focus this year is the parachute, and we have a comparison shot of last year's design and this year's design. If we could pull that up, Dan, maybe you can explain the differences.
Sure. So last year's design, if we have that graphic, was called a. Well, I guess we'll have to wait for the graphic to come up.
EMP1 32, EMP2 30.
There we go. So last year's design was called a disc sail, and this year's is a ring sail. At first blush, they probably look pretty similar. They're the same size, and a lot of elements look the same in this picture. The main thing you'll notice is that the sort of orange part that you see on the top on the disc sail is one big flat piece, whereas on the ring sail, it's a whole bunch of different segmented rings. And the real thing that we found when we were looking at the data from last year is that the disc sail parachute that we used last year is very, very good and a very strong parachute after it's fully opened. But when it's in kind of an intermediate state, when it's in the process of opening, it has some weaknesses. On the other hand, we feel that the ring sail is going to be strong throughout the opening process, when it's partially open and when it's fully open. So that's why we decided to go with that design in our test this year.
So the next step is to see if this parachute is ready for the conditions that it will endure in this test. So you took it through a sled test at China Lake.
Right.
That's right. So similar, earlier in the broadcast, we showed a test at China Lake of the Syad, and we do something similar with the parachute. So here's a test at our rocket sled track at China Lake, where we test the parachute for strength. So a helicopter comes up, drops the parachute down, it sort of gently opens up, and it's got a big long rope coming off of it. That rope is about to enter that funnel, and once it does, these big rockets fire, and they pull the parachute down from the sky with a force of about 100,000 pounds. So this, again, is a strength test that we're doing to make sure that the parachute is strong enough to withstand the forces that it's going to see in the test today. You see there, it looks like it kind of gave just at the end. That wasn't the parachute canopy itself. It was another feature that we were expecting to give way. So for us, that was actually a very successful, good test of the parachute that proved it was strong enough for the test today.
And you are watching live coverage of the LDSD test from Kauai, Hawaii, and we'll be back in a moment.
TC, this is AC on Project Net.
Good, AC.
We're still good with the drop time 21:35.
Good. Copy. No change in drop time.
No change.
check step 106.
DNC is flight.
Go flight.
So you're witnessing a long-standing JPL tradition. The teammates are sharing peanuts. These are lucky peanuts, and anytime we have a mission or a big test, always share peanuts as a good luck charm. And it dates way back to the Ranger days where there was a mission where there were several failures, and the one mission when the teammates shared a bottle of peanuts, it worked. And so we have continued on that tradition all this time.
Flight GNC.
Go GNC.
Do we have estimation of Kilo Whiskey at this time?
I don't believe at this time. I think Power's working on that.
Copy.
All right, Power, if you could, you can hold Glen Mac Power on.
Copy that. Powering up Glen Mac.
Okay, confirmed. Separation connectors are currently showing both connected.
Copy that. Thank you, Jim.
I think drop should be very soon.
Avionics, you ready to power on ordnance bus?
Go.
All right, go Power.
Nominal bus on Glen Mac, showing good current, good voltage.
All right, Power, if you can power on ordnance Alpha.
Copy. Powering on ordnance Alpha.
So it looks like we are about 15 minutes out from the drop time. The drop time has been listed as 21:35 UTC, 11:35 a.m. Hawaii time, and 5:35 Eastern Daylight Time. So we're standing by for that. Every so often, as you see right here, we see this image of the global mapper. And Dan, explain what folks are seeing. This is how they are tracking this balloon.
That's right. So there's actually two trajectories that are overlaid on top of each other in this that we see. One of them is sort of a black and white line, and that's what the balloon has actually done. The greenish line is what we predicted the balloon would do. So we're pretty close to the predicted trajectory, which is a good thing. And now the balloon is sort of in that O position out over the ocean to the west of Kauai. So it looks like things are in the right place for this test, and at this point the team is doing its final checks and standing by for the test.
And seeing this image, you realize why we are in Hawaii to do this test. You wanted a huge expanse of space to be able to perform this without endangering anyone and making sure that if anything happens, it's out in the middle of the ocean.
That's correct. This is a really big space that we're occupying in this test, and we need it to be basically locked down. We can't have any airplanes or boats or people underneath for safety reasons. And so that's why PMRF, the Pacific Missile Range Facility, is really the best place for us to do this test.
Flight, please, and at your discretion.
Power it clear.
Sending in NIT.
NIT received.
Power confirms.
All right, team. So
we are standing by. We are about 12 minutes out from the scheduled drop time.
Should be 10.
And, of course, standing by.
You have S-band, ECM lock, and Chapter 10. Drop battery voltage still holding good. GlenMac temperatures look good.
All stations, this is TC on the project net. Support status, green or red, for exceptions, and ability to support TV drop. OC for range systems.
Range is green, ready to support.
BPO.
BPO go.
Flight.
Flight go.
RD.
RDs go.
All right, team, let's go around
Check
the
step
room
107.
and make sure we're ready to proceed with safe and arm device arming for the Star 48. Avionics.
Avionics is go.
PNC.
PNC is go.
Trajectory.
Trajectory is go.
Thermal.
Thermal's go with exception.
Systems.
RD, were you calling TC?
Power.
Yes, sir. Just
Powers
an FYSA, the Kahana and TC expected to arrive.
All right, thermal, just to double back with you. Exception still the side.
Same exception reported.
Copy that.
At TSP 1143.
We're a little less than 11 minutes out now, and periodically you'll hear the team referring to TV. That is not a television set. That is test vehicle. This is the LDSD test vehicle we're talking about, and that's the reference.
What we're hearing now is some polls of the team to make sure that all the systems on the vehicle are ready to go and are healthy for the drop.
Copy. Pulsing Star 48. Command away. Good command.
Copy, good command.
Nominal bus. Sending command off.
Flight systems for GNC, are we tracking pendulum angle as well?
AC, this is TC on Project Net.
Systems,
TC, this is AC on Project Net. We're working it on range coordination.
Doesn't look significant at this point.
I just want to verify that you guys have settled on a 62-degree pointing azimuth.
We're working that right now.
TC is flight on Project Net.
Go ahead, flight.
Just like to report that the test vehicle and Star 48 have been successfully armed.
Star 48's been armed.
And sorry about that, power.
Guys,
we are eventually on MIP2.
Copy that. You want to send a couple of test links on MIP1, assuming the SPF was busy?
That's affirm. Wilco.
Discover is in orbit around the Lagrange point. It took a fair bit of time to get there. I've got over 100, almost 200, if not more videos.
So in the left-hand corner, you'll see a quad split, and these are the onboard cameras, and one of them has been held off. But these are the various cameras that we will be able to watch the deployments with. And I believe, Dan, can you go over which each camera will show?
So the top two views sort of look out over the edge of the test vehicle. And so that's going to have a really good view of the SIAD when it deploys. The lower left view is looking back behind the vehicle. So right now there's nothing to see. It's just looking out into emptiness. But that's where the parachute will be when we deploy it. So that's going to be a great view of the parachute. And then the fourth one should be a view of our main rocket motor. I believe the team is holding off on powering up that camera in order to make sure that it works correctly. So hopefully that camera will be powering on here in the next few minutes before the test starts.
And we are about 7 minutes out from the projected drop time.
Nicely done. Cut your bikes.
And talk teams, just a reminder, we're about a minute from having a
TC, this is AC on Project Net. We're maintaining the drop time, 21:35, and our azimuth angle.
So you're going with a pointing azimuth of 62, correct?
Correct.
Check 18108. BPO.
Yeah,
Can you
BPO
confirm?
confirm 62.
Thank you, sir.
Dan, this is a new image here.
Check
Can you describe what you're
110.
seeing?
We reached flow.
This is a view from the balloon looking down at our test vehicles. So this is the heat shield, sort of the front side of the test vehicle, which is going to be facing into the wind when the rocket fires. And overlaid is a lot of data showing the heading of the vehicle and other information that the team needs in order to know the health of the balloon and the vehicle.
Go ahead, TC. Yes, sir. The LDSD project is green. Request a clear range for execution of the TV drop.
Range is clear, clean, clear, green. TV drop is authorized.
Thank you, sir. Check 112.
Okay, copy. Okay, copy.
Flight, this is TC on the project net. Turning this operation over to you for TV drop.
copy that. And power, you're clear to start Civit 4.
Copy.
Any systems, you had something?
Yeah, just be advised we could do a last-minute push-out by a couple minutes because the rotator...
BPO, that's confirmed. You're authorized to open the top vent.
Push out to let it settle more.
Copy that. Who's making that call?
Good question. Stand by.
That's
Flight
it.
power.
That's the RSO.
Go power.
Good Civit 4.
Copy that. Oh, wait, and Glenn Mac
Oh, there we go. We have that
-2.
camera. We have the camera to main rock.
Flight systems, that call will be made by the RSO.
Copy that. I am...
BPO, just let me know when those top vents are open.
All right, we have the fourth image in the lower right-hand screen. Dan, go ahead and explain what that final image is.
What we're looking at is the nozzle of our Star 48 rocket. That's the main rocket that's going to accelerate the vehicle up to Mach 4. And so when we get to the time of actually doing the drop and that rocket fires, we'll see a big plume of flame coming out of that nozzle as it fires.
Protocol is now in effect.
Oh, God, this is so my heart's like going down right now.
Power, would you hold and hit 1-2?
Standing by for a single click.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, team. Remember to keep it down. We have a lot of things going on here in the last 2 minutes.
Sending pre-init. Mark.
Flight and net received.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jinsi. Let us know when you have a verification of velocity errors.
Will do.
EC BPO.
Go ahead, BPO.
Helium valves are open.
Thank you, sir. Check 114.
And trajectory T, make sure you're on Project Net.
Copy. Flight GNC.
What GNC?
We have a good net.
Copy, good in it. Alright, all stations. This is flight on Project Net. TV is go for drop. I repeat, the TV is go for drop.
I'm getting ready to take a few screenshots. TV drop.
Now we're gonna hold
LDSD spacecraft. Oh, is this kind of a spacecraft?
Mark 30 seconds. System is armed.
Your 30 seconds slip up. This is me at this point.
Drop
Mark
in.
10 seconds.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Drop.
Separation confirmed.
Separation confirmed.
DVR is recording.
Ignition confirmed.
DVR is recording.
Finally. There's the balloon.
We have stable flight.
Copy, stable flight.
Good job of dropping my script, so.
Mach 1. Vehicle's gaining altitude. Acceleration is good. Spin rate is good. Mach 2. Vehicle stable. Mach 3. Vehicle stable. Acceleration is good. Mach 4.
That means we should have cut off of the Star 48.
We're not detected.
Yeah.
Yes. VT1,
Good burnout.
expected VT1, 1,010 meters per second.
Copy, VT1.
Expected VT2, 899 meters per second.
Residual spin rate, 2 degrees per second.
VT1 detected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, deployed.
VT2 detected.
Should deploy. No, not deployed.
Good.
Oh, it's shaking.
Come on, baby. Alright, here he goes. Come on, baby. Here goes.
No! The chute ripped apart again.
Flight, this is PI, partial shoot.
Copy, partial shoot.
Az eltenni, megint széttépődött. Pedig másik feltétlenül. Maybe they have time acceleration on.
RD, this is TC on Project Net. RD, this is TC on Project Net. Yes, sir, I copied. I translated the partial shoot. Good copy. We had a partial shoot.
I don't know if this guy's a failure.
So RD, move over to anomaly 1 and coordinate with trajectory on movement of the ships.
RD, this is trajectory. I have a small location. 22, 48, 29. Decimal 0. Longitude, negative 160. Decimal 0. Longitude.
We were looking for. We heard the call that we were in stable flight. We heard that we got up to Mach 4. So looks like we got the condition that we wanted to. The SIAD inflated, and of course it's too early to say exactly how it performed, but it looks like it performed great. What we're seeing now on the screen now is that we're getting down to lower altitudes, and so the pressure is higher outside the SIAD, and so that makes it flap around. But while we were actually using it up at altitude, it looked like it was performing very well. The parachute, though, we heard that there was a partial shoot. So that tells us that the parachute deployed, but there was something that happened with its operation that wasn't expected. It was a little bit hard to see exactly what was happening in the sort of low-resolution feed that we had. And so that's why the team is going to take a look at the high-resolution video that we're going to get back along with the rest of our data to make a determination about what's going to happen. And so one of the next steps that's going to happen is we have a black box aboard the vehicle, which has all of that critical data. It's really a gold mine of important data from this test. That's going to separate off the vehicle. It has homing beacons on it so we can find it and fish it out of the water. And so that's really the top priority once this splashes down, is to get that black box out of the water, because that's going to tell us exactly what happened with the parachute and everything else in the test.
So we just saw that the systems have shut down in preparation of splashing down into the water. This is a great example of understanding how we test and why we test. We have to push the envelope to the max to learn as much as we can.
That's right. This is exactly why we do tests like this before we send things to Mars, so that we can understand exactly how they work or don't work, and then we can improve on our designs to make sure that when we're actually ready to send spacecraft to Mars, we know that they're going to work when that big mission is on the line.
Roger, I have LOS on the radar. Stand by for...
And a reminder, this is the largest parachute ever tested. The parachute that went to Mars with MSL was the largest that we had at that point. And this is the largest supersonic parachute to get to the next level.
That's right. It's about twice the area of the parachute that was used with Curiosity, about 100 feet in diameter. So it really is a very, very large parachute that we're testing, that we have tested here today.
And we will have more information as things transpire. There will be a news conference planned tomorrow, I believe, at 7 a.m. Hawaii time, and that will be 10 a.m. Pacific time and 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's when Mark Adler, the project manager, and Ian Clark, the PI on LDSD, will be able to give us a little bit more information. But right now, we basically have what we could see, and again, we do not have high resolution to tell us all that much. Okay.
Go ahead, BPO.
Yeah, no, TC, I know you got your hands full right now. Do you have any idea of location time for a hot wash on this?
Stand by.
Your line button 25, that's to the LDSD. From what I could tell, the chute to rip apart again. So yeah, goodbye.
Stationed to actually witness the splashdown event. So we're not going to be able to see that. But we do have boats that are going to the site where we're projecting the vehicle is going to splash down. And then we're going to fish everything out of the water, because we really want to understand how all the systems performed in this test. And we have some cool pictures from the recovery operations last year, which show various elements of the test in the water. So parachute from last year, underwater, And this was a diver that was in the process of recovering the parachute snapped this great picture of the chute while it was down there underwater. The next one shows the balut. That's the item that's used to pull the parachute out, floating in the water, and we've got snorkelers that are swimming out to go recover that balut out of the water. The next one shows the entire test vehicle being crane lifted out of the ocean and then onto the deck of a boat. So you see that big nozzle of the Star 48 rocket. You see the SIAD there. At this point, it's pretty limp, just sort of hanging there loosely, having already done its job. And the vehicle is sort of dumping ocean water as it's being crane lifted onto the boat deck. And we have another picture that I think shows the parachute being dragged in. You see it's a lot of work to get these things out of the ocean and onto the boat. So a whole team of people dragging this parachute out of the water. And then here's another view of the parachute being hoisted into this recovery boat. And you can see the test vehicle there in the background on the same boat, having already been recovered. So that's really the next step for the team this year. Those are the pictures from last year, and those same things are going to happen here as those boats move out into position in order to fish everything out of the water.
Now, this was the second LDSD test, but there are 3 planned, and there is still yet another one that will take place a year from now in the same location in Kauai, Hawaii. It's anybody's guess at this point exactly what will be tested, but there is a possibility that we may try testing a brand new SIAD. We've already seen SIAD-R working well in two tests already. Is there a possibility of a new SIAD?
There is a possibility, yeah. We have a totally new design of SIAD that we've been working on in parallel with the SIAD that we've seen here today. And so there's a possibility that we'll test that SIAD in the test next year. We're not sure, though, what we're going to do exactly in the test next year. It's going to depend a lot on the analysis of what happened here in the test today. So the team is going to spend some time with the data, understanding what happened, looking at the video, looking at all of the instrumentation data, and coming to some, firm conclusions about how everything performed. And that is going to inform the choices about what we're going to do in our supersonic test next summer.
All right, so we have some video of that SIAD-E. We might be able to roll it. This is part of the work that you've been working on with the LDSD project.
Yeah, that's right. So this is another rocket sled test. This is the SIAD-E. It's a larger version of the SIAD. The design is somewhat different. So here's a slow-motion view of the SIAD deploying. It actually has inlets that are open to the air. You can see them well in this view here. And so those ingest the oncoming air and help it to inflate. That's different than the SIAD that we tested here today, which is a sort of a pressure vessel, a donut. So here's different views of that SIAD deploying in slow motion. It actually only took about 1 second to deploy here on the rocket sled, and we tested it at about 220 miles per hour. So it was traveling pretty quickly down that track again to make sure that it's strong enough to withstand the forces that it would see in a supersonic test.
So that wraps up the main order of business for today. The test, the vehicle's cameras have stopped, and they will be off until the vehicle hits the water. It was to be shut off. All power is off until the test vehicle hits the water, and boats are on standby to retrieve the vehicle, and they won't be back to shore until sometime tomorrow. And there will also be a telecon tomorrow to report and follow up on what happened. That will be at 7 a.m. Hawaii time, 10 a.m. Pacific, and 1 p.m. Eastern. And And to find out more information on LDSD, go to www.nasa.gov/LDSD.
I need the element leads. I repeat the
All right, and we are going to sign off soon. Our thanks to Dan Koda, our awesome LDSD commentator, and the whole LDSD team that includes partners from 3 NASA centers, JPL, Marshall, and Wallops. And of course, a big thank you to the U.S. Navy Pacific Missile Range Facility. And we leave you now with a video on Syed-E, which very well may be one of the next technologies that could be tested on the next LDSD project. This is a video produced by Dan Koda of this year's Syed-E sled test. Thanks everyone for joining us, and if again you want more information, check that website. Thanks for joining us.